Well, I'm here at the offices of Critical Manufacturing in Porto, in Portugal, and ahead of their big MES 4.0 summit. So have a very good chance to meet with Francisco Almada Lobo, who's the CEO and co-founder of Critical Manufacturing. Francisco, hello.
Hello, thank you so much.
So tell me a little bit about your heritage. You've got quite a bit of background, which you explained to us, with Siemens, Infineon, Kimondo.
Correct.
But then you set up in 2009 and you're going very well.
So yeah, we started, the majority of the persons that are founded this company started to work within Siemens, within a semiconductor environment. Then there was a lot of history with this investment that Siemens did here in Portugal, but Siemens became Infineon Technologies and later became Kimondo, and then Kimondo went insolvent in 2009. So when the company went insolvent, I was running a team of around 150 persons, and this team was deploying MES systems, commercial MES systems, into other plants of the group. And so we decided that this could not be the end of it, just because we had so much knowledge accumulated. Everyone was available, and we understood that the MES solutions, the commercial ones, could be much better. And so we decided to create this company. So I created a business plan, started looking for investors, and created the company. And so the rest is basically what we have discussed, but essentially what happened was that in the very beginning we had our difficulties, our challenges in the early years, but ever since 2011 we keep growing steadily. We are profitable ever since then. We are going more into some of the segments which are key to us, some of the more highly sophisticated segments that we dedicate ourselves to. And everything's going really well, particularly starting in 2021, where the growth got really to a stage which we call hypergrowth, which is more than 40% year on year, reaching 70% in some of the years. So it's really a very impressive growth that we are experiencing.
So two things. I mean, what does that growth indicate to you? That Industry 4.0 is real? People are really trying to figure out how to make their manufacturing smart? Or is it just because there are so many more manufacturing plants and especially with the hypergrowth in the electronics industry?
No, I think it's the Industry 4.0, but it's a little bit getting back to reality, because in the early phases of Industry 4.0 there was a lot of hype. There was a lot of technology. Everyone talked about IoT or blockchain or some other things. And as some of the pilots did not yield the right results, some of the initiatives were not very successful, people started going back to the roots and say, okay, so what do we really need to have a consistent Industry 4.0 strategy? And they figured out that one of the base systems that is needed, one of the main backbones, is an MES system. And then once you have an MES system, which is the basis for the digitalization of the factory, then you can plug all the other things on top. And so companies are realizing this, and hence the growth that we're experiencing in the MES space.
And MES meaning?
Manufacturing Execution Systems, which is a system that performs the digitalization of all the processes which happen inside the shop floor. Okay, so this is the very basics, and then you hook to it different things, like the data that will come from IoT, the data that will come from equipment, all the additional things are hooked into a structure, into a basis that then allows the data to be organized, the process to be controlled, and the additional Industry 4.0 gains to be achieved.
And I think one of the things I picked up from your presentation earlier was that you have not a high volume of customers, but a lot of customers who have many plants that they want to manage. So tell us sort of how that works.
That's correct. That's our sweet spot space, right?
Okay.
So what we do is we work with very large manufacturing corporations. And so typically they have 20, 30, 40, 60 plants. It's quite a daunting challenge to consider that they have to go through digitalization of all of these. So they need to pick up a very capable set of products, a very capable set of initiatives into the first plant, so that they can quickly replicate into the next ones. If they would just do, and there's a kind of something that I do all the time, which is if we have a customer that has 80 plants, right? If they take half a year to do a deployment of an MES, this will be already considered fast. They will take 40 years to do it. Right? So we cannot allow those things, right? So we need to have something which scales quickly, which is repeatable, and a good basis, a good framework, a good MES system is the basis for allowing this to then scale very rapidly.
And that's been the secret to your success.
That's part of the secret of our success. Yes, is how we're
Not
able
really
to
a
do
secret
that.
though.
It's how it's done. It's a secret.
And let's go into then the key sectors of growth. I mean, you have 4 key sectors.
Correct. So semiconductor was our first one. This is where we,
because of your heritage.
because of our heritage, this is the one that we knew the best. Semiconductor can be quite diversified. So we're talking about from front ends, back ends, R&D facilities. So we cover the entire spectrum of subsectors within the semiconductor space. Then electronics. Electronics, we do electronics assembly, SMT. We do electronic components, PCB manufacturing, and so on. So this has been a quite important sector and one that is growing the fastest within our existing segments. We do medical devices. So medical devices, all ranges from assembly of devices into other areas. And so this has been a quite important segment for us as well. And finally, the industrial equipment area, in which, again, similar to the other sectors, we're working with companies that are quite large, that have multiple plants, geographically distributed, and lots of challenges that we're helping them to resolve.
And I know you're part of a larger, you've got acquired, you're part of a larger group, it's publicly listed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you quote if you quote your sort of financial figures, what's the biggest area for you in those 4 areas?
The main area in terms of volume is still semiconductor.
Oh, okay.
The areas which has the highest growth is currently electronics.
Yeah,
Electronics growth, absolute terms,
Okay.
semiconductor.
got it. And you talked about your vision, making Industry 4.0 a reality. How are you making that happen, and how are you different to others?
Yes, within our segments, I believe that we have the widest and the deepest offering. Okay, so that's the first thing which is important, and this means that we can adapt our system to the processes in such a perfect manner that allows a quite good basis for digital transformation. Okay, so this is really important. The second aspect is that we go beyond the traditional frontiers of an MES. So we not only deal with the execution portion, but we also deal with the automation, with integration to equipment, integration to IoTs, in collecting all of this data. And then finally, the third pillar is how we transform and how we use analytics to gather all this data that we do from both the MES, equipment, and so on, into creating and generating insights that can create real competitive advantage to our customers.
And I think you talked to me earlier about dark data. A lot of customers have a lot of data which they don't do enough with. Is that right?
Yes. But this is important because, as we were discussing, artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms, they're very data hungry. So this means in order to build very accurate predictions, then you need a lot of historical data. So what manufacturers are doing is that they're storing all this data, and although they consider this to be dark data that they don't know the use for today, they understand that this is an asset, and this can become quite useful for those algorithms that they will need in the near future. And that's why we need to have frameworks and structures in order to be able to collect all this data and to make this data available for when it is needed.
And that's why I think you offer to store a lot of your customers' data, so that then you can use historic data to do a lot of that analytics, but you actually try and contextualize that data as well.
Yes, one of the advantages that we have versus the vendors or the other systems that are just taking care of the analytics portion is that we have one of the major sources of contextualization of data, which is the MES system. So the manufacturing execution system has all the structure of data, the materials, the routes, the products, the flows, everything, which is the level of information which contextualizes the data points that comes from equipment, for instance, and that provides much better possibilities of generating insights. So I think it's a clear advantage by having this full set of solutions together.
2 more questions. So first of all, one is, how are you different to your competitors?
Yeah, so I basically explored that a bit, but again, it's our focus into different segments and the amount of flexibility that we have for covering the specific processes that our customers have. And it's the coverage in terms of functionality going beyond the execution into the automation and analytics. So I think that's the main advantage. And the other ones is how we work together with them. We create a roadmap, and the roadmap has basically 2 sets of inputs. Our inputs that come from customers, by using them, they see what they need, and we keep investing in R&D and adapting our product according to what our customers need. And then we have the more, let me say, visionary things that we put in the product, the more technological advances that we put in the product, and it's the mixture of these two that makes the product successful at the end.
Okay. And final question. So what do you see are the key trends in Industry 4.0 over the next year or two?
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence is dominating the picture. As I pointed out, some of the early phases of artificial intelligence and applying this data tend to have either results which are not very clear, or there are very point solutions and so on. And companies are starting to understand that they need a little bit more. And so the evolution that I see in the future is how we as a company can evolve the technological aspects of the solutions at the same time as our customers evolve and understand how can this technology be used to the use cases that they have at hand. Okay, so it's this evolution in terms of data science, but in terms of not only having the technology, but knowing where to apply it and getting a little bit out of the hype of artificial intelligence and starting to have artificial intelligence really creating value.
That's a really good message to end on. Thank you, Francisco.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure.
I'm talking to Jeff Peabody, Managing Director for Critical Manufacturing in the US and also responsible for semiconductor sales. Jeff, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about what's happening with you with the whole sort of reshoring and CHIPS Acts in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot going on in the US right now. We're seeing government investments at the same time. Industry 4.0, the desire for digital transformation is really pushing MES, which is manufacturing execution systems, forward in not just semiconductor, but especially semiconductor throughout the US.
And I think obviously with this recent activity, you've been working with some of the key inward investors in the US as well and helping them to sort of make we talk about smart manufacturing or Industry 4.0, but I think it's the manufacturing execution systems that actually make that happen. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we're seeing is, more and more companies with the introduction of Industry 4.0, they've adopted MES solutions, but now they're going beyond that. And the MES has organized the data, it's collecting the data, but then what is the next step? And critical manufacturing believes that's analytics. So we're doing a lot right now with our IoT data platforms and analytics for that data.
So what are the typical things that the customers will be doing in a semiconductor or medical electronics or environment? What will they do? They need something like a system like yours, which is a data platform. Is that right?
It is a data platform, but it is a manufacturing execution system, and we follow ISA 95 standards. They've defined what MES is and the scope of the MES, so we follow that. But one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of these companies, they've acquired other companies, they're building new facilities here, and they've got a lot of different types of solutions controlling their manufacturing. They may have some commercial solutions, they may have some homegrown solutions, they may have siloed solutions. So a lot of these large companies are coming to us and saying, we want to standardize across the board, across all our facilities. And so critical manufacturing is supporting those customers in creating kind of a baseline MES and then allowing them through a center of excellence to roll those out to their multiple facilities to have consistency.
And there be some big name investments in the US like TSMC and Micron. Are you working with any of those?
We are absolutely working with those some of those companies. I don't know if it would be appropriate to mention names publicly, but okay. Yes, certainly.
And are they working with you because they've already worked with you in other areas, or is it because like they see your system? How do they get to sort of work with you?
I think the interesting thing about semiconductor that's a little bit different from other manufacturers is that semiconductor companies know they need an MES. They have a huge number of very complex steps, and they couldn't manufacture really without an MES. So these companies have specific requirements in semiconductor. They're looking for a solution that is able to meet those specific requirements, and critical manufacturing, of course, is one of the leading companies that does that.
Tell me a couple of good examples of things over the last year or two that really good showcase of what you've done with some of these big companies in chips or medical electronics?
I think one of the big things is like we were talking about, just the scale and supporting customers and rolling out multiple sites, in some cases dozens of sites, with a common MES and a common MES platform.
Okay, and Jeff, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.